My dad has been watering the same tree for 15 years. I just cut it down and found my missing uncle inside. 15 years ago, my uncle Marcus went missing during a family camping trip. One minute he was there setting up his tent, and the next morning he was gone. The police searched for weeks but never found a trace of him. My dad was devastated because Marcus was his twin brother. 3 months after Marcus disappeared, my dad came home with this black seed he got from some old man downtown. The guy told him it was a memory tree that would help him feel close to Marcus again. Dad planted it in our backyard that same day. The tree grew impossibly fast. Within 6 months it was taller than me. Within 2 years it towered over our entire house. The bark was smooth and dark gray, almost black, and the leaves were this deep waxy green that seemed to drink sunlight. My dad became obsessed with taking care of it. Every morning at exactly 6 a.m., he'd go outside with a small knife and a watering can. I thought he was just watering the tree until I got curious and watched him through my bedroom window. He was cutting his arm and letting drops of blood fall into the watering can before adding water. When I asked him about it, he just smiled and said, "Marcus needs special nutrients to stay strong." I thought he meant it metaphorically, like the tree reminded him of his brother. Over the years, Dad got more and more obsessed. He quit his job to tend the tree full time. He'd sit under it for hours, talking to the branches like someone was talking back. He started getting thinner and paler, but whenever Mom suggested seeing a doctor, he'd refuse to leave the tree's side. The worst part was what the tree did to everything around it. Mom's flower garden died within a year. The grass turned gray and crumbled to dust. Our dog Max wouldn't even walk on that side of the yard anymore. Something about that tree's shadow felt wrong. It felt hungry. Last month, Dad collapsed while doing his morning ritual. He'd lost so much weight you could see his ribs through his shirt. Mom begged him to stop bleeding himself for this tree, but he said, "I can't abandon Marcus. He's counting on me." That's when I realized Dad wasn't just grieving anymore. He genuinely believed his dead brother was somehow connected to this tree, and it was killing him. I decided the tree had to go. 2 nights ago, I waited until Dad was asleep and grabbed the axe from our garage. The moment I stepped into the tree's shadow, I felt this bone deep cold that made me shiver despite it being summer, but I had to save my dad's life. I raised the axe and swung it as hard as I could into the trunk. The sound wasn't like chopping wood. It was wet and meaty, like hitting raw flesh. Dark red liquid immediately started pouring from the gash. It had the metallic smell of fresh blood. I kept chopping anyway. With each swing, more blood gushed out until it was pooling around my feet. The tree made this horrible groaning sound, like something in agony, but I didn't stop. Finally, after 20 minutes of chopping, it crashed down with a sound that shook the whole neighborhood. I shined my phone's flashlight on the stump to see the damage and nearly threw up right there. The inside of the tree wasn't wood or bark. It was muscle tissue and veins all wrapped around something pale in the center. Human ribs, a human spine, the perfectly preserved skeletal remains of a person who had been growing inside this thing for 15 years. "You killed him." I spun around, and my dad was standing behind me in his pajamas. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the bloody stump with tears streaming down his face. "That was Marcus," he whispered. "The old man told me if I fed the tree every day with my blood, Marcus would never really be gone. He'd be part of our family forever." My hands started shaking. "Dad, what are you talking about?" He rolled up his sleeves and showed me his arm. They were covered in hundreds of small cuts, some fresh from that morning, others old and scarred over. "I've been keeping him alive," he said. "A few drops of blood every morning mixed with water. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The tree was Marcus. He was still with us." I felt sick. My uncle hadn't just disappeared 15 years ago. Somehow that old man had turned him into this thing, this blood-drinking tree, and my dad had been feeding it for over a decade, thinking he was taking care of his brother. Now Marcus was really dead, and my dad was looking at me like I was a murderer. We burned what was left of the tree that night. Dad hasn't spoken to me since. He just sits in Marcus's old chair, staring out the window at the empty spot where the tree used to be. But here's the thing that's keeping me awake at night. Sometimes, around 6 a.m., I hear tapping on my bedroom window. Slow, deliberate taps like someone knocking. When I look outside, there's nothing there, but I swear I can see a shadow moving across the yard. I think I made a mistake cutting down that tree. I think Marcus is angry at me for destroying his new body, and I think he's looking for a replacement. I prank called the police, and my mom got arrested. When I was in kindergarten, my teacher kept trying to make me take a nap when I didn't want to, so I decided to pull a prank on her. I was getting really mad, so to get her back, I waited until she wasn't looking. Then, I snuck over to her desk, stole her phone, and called the police on it. By the time she realized what I was doing, I had already told them to come get me because my teacher was being mean. She started completely freaking out and was now really mad at me. She called my mom to come pick me up, and the police showed up to the school too. 5-year-old me thought this was all hilarious, but when I got home that day, my mom grounded me for a week and wouldn't let me eat pizza. So I decided I needed to get revenge on her too. My plan worked so well the first time, so as soon as she fell asleep that night, I snuck into her room, took her phone, and called the police again. This time I told them my mom was hurting me and wasn't giving me any food to eat. I didn't know what was gonna happen because this time the police took it a lot more serious. They were banging on our door soon after, and when my mom found out I had called them again, I knew I had messed up. They asked me if what I said was true, so as one final blow, I told them yes. It was the middle of the night, and they made my mom go down to the police station to question her in handcuffs. But as soon as we got there, the same cop from earlier recognized me and knew what I did. He knew it was a prank, so to teach me a lesson, they pretended to lock me in the cell until I cried.
What's the best surprise your pet prepared for you when you came home? I walked into what looked like my dog had thrown himself a birthday party. He had somehow gotten into the pantry and arranged treats in neat piles, pulled all his toys into the living room, and was wearing a party hat he had stolen from my closet. The best part, it actually was his birthday and I had completely forgotten. He remembered his own birthday better than I did. What's that school rule you hated the most? Our high school banned hoodies because it hides your identity. One snowy morning, I wore mine anyway. The hall monitor stopped me, demanding I remove it. I said, "Sure," and dramatically pulled it off, revealing another hoodie underneath. Gasps. He told me to remove that one too. I smiled, pulled it off another hoodie. I had 4 on. By the time I was in a t-shirt, I was sweating, and the whole hallway was laughing. They quietly dropped the hoodie ban next month. What's the funniest misunderstanding with your parents? I was talking to my dad about my new friend, and he asked me, "What does he do for work?" I smiled and said, "He's a photographer." Dad looked me up and down, then said, "So he just takes pictures of things, huh?" I laughed. "No, he takes pictures of people." Dad nodded thoughtfully. "That sounds like a job for a professional stalker." I couldn't even respond. I was still laughing.
What happened when my mother-in-law demanded I give her my inheritance? My mother-in-law insisted decided my $50,000 inheritance was family money. I discovered she needed it for my father-in-law's emergency heart surgery. This was something her pride wouldn't let her admit. Instead of confronting her, I anonymously paid the hospital bill. At Christmas, she hugged me and whispered, "I know it was you." Our relationship transformed overnight, and she's now my strongest ally.